Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is Victor Magariño. So I was studying for my finals, and since I have some free time now, I decided to dedicate some minutes to saying some things about my thoughts on my appearance in Adam Friended's channel, as well as on the future things that I will be doing in this channel. So the first thing that I wanted to comment about my debate with Adam Friended is that I'm actually pleased with many of the things that happened that day, especially because I got him to at least think further on certain things that were very, very important. For example, he had been claiming that Marx had this simplistic view of human nature where you just reduced everything to the economic level, and that is basically the only motivation of human beings. And this is clearly not the case. Marx never agreed with the position of other economists who were arguing for homo economicus, that economics are the only motivation of human beings, and he certainly didn't have a simplistic view of human nature. In fact, his view of human nature is far more complex than what anyone might think before reading him. Certainly a lot more complex than what Jordan Peterson thinks. Now, getting him to see that Marx wasn't so simplistic is one of the things that I'm happy with. But even more happy with, I'm especially satisfied with the fact that I got him to think a little bit further about the history of socialism itself. It is very common to see people simplifying things where just every attempt of socialism has failed. We haven't seen any successes. We haven't seen any improvements, and thus capitalism is the best system that there is. Now, this is obviously a very simplistic way of looking at things, and defending the history of socialism is not so much a thing to do because you support socialism itself, but because it's actually it's essentially supporting a rigorous analysis of history. And history is never black or white. Reality is never black or white. We have to see that no matter how many objections you might have to something, that thing might still require more in-depth analysis before you can make definitive conclusions about it. And this is one of the things that I think I did well, which is stress the fact that some of what he was saying about past attempts of socialism was untrue and overly simplistic. I mean, he had this idea that because Marxists never took into consideration human nature, that they didn't bring about any innovation, and that essentially was the failure of the USSR, which is clearly wrong. I mean, one of the countries that was most technologically advanced of the time was the USSR, and saying that there was no innovation in any socialist country is essentially saying something that it's utterly wrong. Also, I'm happy because I also got him to think more about the limitations of his argument against workers owning the means of production. Now, it is very common to see people say, oh, why, if workers if people cannot even decide where they would go on Friday night to eat lunch, to eat dinner with their wife, why would they be able to organize production in a fabric, for example? And again, this is doing a very simplistic analysis of human behavior in general. I mean, are you willing to say that workers cannot, under any circumstance, decide by themselves what is best for them? That they have to have someone on power deciding everything for them? This is the kind of authoritarian rhetoric that authoritarian socialists, for example, used in order to justify their power. Now, are you willing to sacrifice freedom and especially democracy to such extent just to justify capitalism? The same way that the people that you criticize are did to justify their own forms of authoritarianism? That is a very complicated issue that should not be underestimated, and we shouldn't give too much to the position held by the authoritarians. We shouldn't give them too much credit, because it is certainly true that people, especially nowadays, cannot or live in these sort of independent communes where they decide everything for themselves. That is obviously a utopia right now, but at the same time, we can make things better by democratizing the workplace, by democratizing life, human life, more. And this is not utopian at all. In fact, this is the only way that we're going to come about improving the conditions that we have right now. Because otherwise, the path we're leading is not going to lead us anywhere positive. And if what people like Adam Frender are advocating for is more authoritarianism, then they should be more explicit about it. Because saying that workers are completely ignorant and they cannot organize production by themselves is essentially saying they should be controlled by someone who tells them what to do and what not to do. And I think this is this is very dangerous. So thinking more deeply about this is something that I think happened in that debate, and is something that I am happy about. Now, what I will be doing on the next weeks during the summer is I want to give more time to this channel, to this project that I have here. I want to comment on many more things. For example, I want to speak about my conversation with Aaron Ra, what the limitations of that conversation were, etc. I also want to appear in other channels to discuss with other people, and I also want to bring people into my channel to discuss with them certain issues. So I also want to give you some participation on this. I mean, I want to know from you, my audience, what you want to see more often, topics that you might want me to speak on. That is always whatever feedback you have is always what's gonna make me improve, and what's going to make me create better quality videos and content that is more likable. So that's it for now. I will be uploading a lot more next week onwards. I mean, from next weekend onwards, because this week I will have my finals. And I will see you in the next one.